Hello, hello, welcome back to my little farm kitchen. Today it is 2 days, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 3 days until Thanksgiving. And I am just getting things sorted and organized in the kitchen. And I thought today I would make one of my favorite Thanksgiving dishes. Now, Thanksgiving is not something that we celebrate in Australia. It's not part of our culture. But as many of you know, I'm married into an American family, and I think it was about 8 or 9 years ago, I just decided, I need to start educating my children on their American heritage, because they're Australian, but they're also American, 50-50. So I needed to do that. And my first inclination, I was thinking about, what can we do? Maybe teach some American history, maybe because, we were doing homeschooling and mainly teaching Australian and then world history. So they had picked up a little bit, but not a whole heap. And I don't even remember what triggered it or why, but I decided we were going to start celebrating Thanksgiving. I loved the idea behind it, and I loved the purpose of it and what it would be emphasizing to my family, as well as teaching them about their American family. Okay, so my introduction, I suppose, my first introduction to American food and culture was actually through my brother, not through my husband, because my brother also married an American girl, and that they met and got married before I met my husband. So I had been introduced to her and her family, who were all living in Australia at the time, and ate frequently at their house and had a lot to do with them. So I would go over to eat with them, and they would have, obviously, American food and American style of cooking and that kind of thing. And so I don't remember if this dish was first served at a Thanksgiving, or because we also had, church potlucks and stuff. And Miss Sandra, who was my sister-in-law's mother, would bring meals to those events. And so I'm not really sure. I can't remember. Anyway, I tried this, and it's a sweet potato casserole, which is very foreign to the Australian palate, kind of like pumpkin pie. Very foreign, because we're not used to eating sweet potatoes or pumpkins in a sweet form. It's always usually savory. So having a casserole that is sweet was very foreign. But unlike the pumpkin pie, I did really love this sweet potato casserole straight away. So I asked Miss Sandra for the recipe, and I think I wrote it down on a recipe card, and I've just written the ingredients basically. And I've been making this ever since. So used to, before we celebrated Thanksgiving in our family, I would make this at Christmas time. I would make it just special occasions. It wasn't an everyday kind of food, but definitely one that we all loved. Okay, coming out here into the mudroom to pick out some sweet potatoes for this meal. Okay, so I've got my sweet potatoes out of the garden. Some of them have got a few holes in them from bugs. I'm going to have to wash them off and maybe cut out some patches, but I still think they'll be okay. Funny little side note, I was just thinking about sweet potatoes. When we first moved to this area, we went to Outback Steakhouse, and actually my husband used to work there for a short amount of time when we first came here. And so it's supposed to be an Australian menu, and it's just totally not. Like, it has Australian sounding names, but the food itself is not, except they do put Tim Tams, the little Tim Tam bickies, on a top of a cake or a cheesecake. So that is genuinely Australian, but that's probably about the only thing that is. And the food is yummy. It is good food, but it's not really Australian at all. And we went there for a meal, and they served the sweet potato And the sweet potato was served with brown sugar and butter and cinnamon, like it was really sweet. And I'm like, this is nothing you would ever see in Australia. In Australia, you would serve a sweet potato with butter and sour cream, but not brown sugar. So yeah, that was just, we were like, what? This is supposed to be Australian. But yeah, obviously fantastic marketing and it works really well for them. So kudos to them. Okay, so I've given them a wash and I'm just going to I'll peel them first, dice them up and put them in my little saucepan and cook them up. And you can see this one in particular had a lot of these little bug holes, but I've just burrowed it out with a paring knife and the majority of it is just fine, so that's good. Okay, I did not pick a good saucepan, so I'm going to put it into this one. I'm just going to put water in it and stick it on the stove to cook. Okay, I'm just going to turn that on and boil that until they're nice and soft. Okay, while that is cooking, I'm going to go ahead and mix up a crumble topping to go on the top of this when it's all cooked and mashed, and then I'll add a few more ingredients to the sweet potatoes, but I'm just going to go ahead and make the crumble topping. I think I'm actually going to, seeing as I have this dirty anyway, I'm going to go ahead and use that to mix up the crumble topping. Now, the ingredients for the crumble topping are basically chopped pecans and brown sugar. Now, when I had access to it in Australia, I would use Rapadura sugar or coconut sugar, but I just have organic brown sugar right now. And then a half a cup of flour, and then you bring it all together with melted butter. Now, what I'm going to do is I have this mill that is actually, my mother-in-law bought this, and it is, I've just been researching about freshly milled grains and looking at incorporating them more into my kitchen and into my baking. So the more I am learning and reading and looking into this whole issue of freshly milled grains, I guess I've always known and been taught that whole grains are better for you. But for probably a good decade now, whole grains and just grains in general, more so than whole grains, but grains have been kind of villainized as the bad guys, and there's so many gluten intolerances and sensitivities, and I'm like very much aware of that. I myself have had what I have always considered a gluten intolerance, but just I'm not ready to sort of make any bold statements about this, but my curiosity is definitely tweaked and I'm delving deep into this whole issue of freshly milled grains. And I want to start using more freshly milled grains in my baking. So rather than just use this, which is still, I think, a huge step up. It's organic, it's unbleached. The stuff they do to our flour in the cheapest store-bought flour you can get is horrendous. And there is no nutritional value in it. But even this, I think this is better because it doesn't have the toxic load of glyphosate and other chemicals in the cheapest ones you can get, but it still has been stripped of all of the husk and the germ and the goodness of the whole grain. So I don't know. I'm sharing this with you because I'm really interested and starting to learn more about it and going to start using it more in my kitchen. Just a little caveat, don't panic. If you love my fresh white floured breads that I bake in my micro bakery, I will still have them. They will still be available, but I am going to try and incorporate more of these whole grains, at least at the beginning for my family. And I'll still have like that white sandwich loaf that I make. My children love that, and I'm still going to make that for them. But if I can incorporate more grains, I think that's going to really boost their health. So for today, I have this hard white wheat that I bought through Azure, and I'm going to mill some of that. I want a half cup, and this is probably going to be more than a half cup because it does fill out a lot when you mill it, like puffs out a lot. Okay, so I want a half cup. So I'm going to put the grains in here, just fits under there. So that's about a half cup right there. Okay, so I'm going to put half a cup of butter or a stick of butter into and melt in this little saucepan. All right, so we have our melted butter here, and it's so easy. All I'm going to do is add in the pecans and the brown sugar and the flour, like that, and stir it around. Now, if the crumble is not coming together enough, I can always add a bit more butter. And I wonder, with freshly milled flour, I may need to do that because it will absorb a lot more liquid than a white flour will. So I may just let this sit here for a minute. So I don't know if you can see that. It's kind of this lovely crumbly texture. But if that, I'm going to let it sit for a minute because I don't want a really dry crumble. I want a nice, moist, buttery crumble. So I think because of that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to let it sit for about 5 or 10 minutes and come back and check on it and see if it has dried too much and absorbed too much of the liquid. I'll just add some more butter because you can never go wrong with that, right? Okay, in answer to my earlier question about the crumble, it is still looking quite moist. I've let it sit for actually 30 minutes or more, and it's fine. So I'm going to go ahead and use it as is. The sweet potato is cooked, all steamed up and soft. Now I have cooked more sweet potato than really I need. I'm just using this little dish. So I'm going to separate some of that and mash it up with the other ingredients and finish it off. Okay, so I'm going to scoop out just approximately 3 cups. It's actually probably a bit more than that. Yeah, it's definitely a bit more than that, but if I do all of it, I'll run out of room in my little container. So that will do of that. Okay, I'm going to add in 1/3 cup of butter, and it says melted, but I mean it's going to melt because the sweet potatoes are so hot still. So scoop that out there and mash that in. I'm actually going to let this cool a little because I am going to put in a couple of eggs, but I don't want the eggs cooking. And I'm also going to add in some cream, 1/2 cup of cream. Let's have a good mash. Okay, so this is all mashed up. I'm going to add in 1/2 cup of cream. Mix that in. And I'm also adding some cinnamon and nutmeg and a couple of eggs. So it's been sitting out for a little bit, and then adding the cream and the butter in will just help it cool down enough. Now, the original recipe also called for more, like 1/2 cup of brown sugar, but I tend to leave it out. I don't feel like it really needs it. The crumble is really sweet, and sweet potatoes are pretty sweet anyway. But if you're a real sweet tooth, you could add that in. That's probably just the Aussie coming out in me. So I'm going to add a little bit of nutmeg and a little bit of cinnamon. I just like a little bit. Now, again, seems to me like a lot of Americans like a lot of cinnamon and a lot of nutmeg, but just according to your taste, however you like it. Give it a good mix. And then I'm going to get a couple of our fresh eggs here. Just going to check. Yeah, that temperature has cooled down enough. Oh, I nearly lost an egg. That's cooled down to sort of lukewarm now, so I shouldn't have a problem with these eggs. And I'm just going to mix that in. Mix. Now my sister-in-law's mother, Miss Sandra, who originally made this recipe, and I was like, oh, I like that. She's from Tennessee. So I don't know if I'm curious to know, you may be able to help me out here. Are there different versions of this sweet potato casserole, you know, in different areas of America? Different states maybe have their own flavor or their own twist on it. I'm not sure. So, oh, and a little bit of vanilla essence, that's what we're missing. This is almost the bottom of the jar of this. You can see the little bits of vanilla in there. And I'm okay with that. Okay. And I'm just going to have a little... That's so good. Yeah, so you can add the sugar if you want. I like it without, but up to you. All right, so I'm going to switch this over here and scrape this sweet potato into here. And just going to spread that out. Let me see. Flatten that out a little. Okay, so we have our sweet potato in there, flattened out, and now I'm just going to put the crumble topping on top. Spread that out. Now I will, just before we're going to eat, just before we're going to eat, I will pop this in the oven, in a moderate oven, so 180 Celsius or 350 Fahrenheit, and put it in for about 20 or 30 minutes. just until it's sort of reheated and then crunchy on top. Now, what they would often do, I don't know if this is a thing all over America, but is put marshmallows on top and then kind of brown them. I never could go there. I just never could. I like it just like this. The marshmallows was a bit too much for me. But if you like marshmallows and you like them super sweet on top of your sweet potatoes, then that's totally fine. I respect that, but this is the way I love it. So it is a couple of hours later and I had to go out, and I've come home and just popped this into the oven and got it out, and it's all goldeny and lovely on top. So I've just dished a little spoonful so we can see what it looks like. All that golden deliciousness. That will be lovely with our dinner tonight. So that is one of my favorite side dishes for Thanksgiving is this little sweet potato casserole. I would love to know, what are your favorites and what does your family do? I know that there seems to be a bit of a pattern of a few things that are consistently, a lot of people have, whether it's the pumpkin pie, the pecan pie. Obviously turkey is a big thing at Thanksgiving, but I'd love to know what your favorites are and what you have as a family tradition. Maybe it's something a little bit different that isn't traditional, but let me know in the comments below. And if you try this yummy sweet potato casserole, let me know what you think. I do hope that you all have a wonderful, blessed Thanksgiving with your families and your loved ones. And we'll see you again here on 9 Little Aussies really soon. Sunshine and raindrops. Until then.